Let's go! Welcome back to Hall of Fame College Football. I'm your host, Jason Watkins. And if you love college football, you know you're in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. I hope somebody is checking on Tony Altimore right now because the Pac-12 is blowing up, and it looks like, make sure he's okay, everybody. Make sure he's okay. Welcome to the show, everybody. Mr. Nathan Bomber Brown from the Big 12 Mafia. We are going to talk Pac-12. Colorado is headed back to the Big 12, according to sources, and we want to talk to Nathan Bomber Brown right now. Welcome to the show, Bomber.
It's like Christmas in, what is it? Are we still July? It seems crazy.
Christmas in July. And I hope that everybody, I was just saying on the intro, I really hope that everybody is checking on Mr. Altimore, make sure he's okay. You know, right. I don't want him to injure himself over this craziness that's going on. What's going on today? How you doing?
I've been doing great. I've been following two stories for the last 2 weeks. I can't really tell who, but they're very credible. And it's been interesting because I've never been in the mix like you have. This is your background, not mine. And to know stuff and not be able to say stuff is an interesting change. So that's been really cool. I want to thank everybody who's been watching my show for coming here and being on your show, because your show is fantastic. I love watching you and Coach. And I don't have enough time in the day to watch you and Greg Flugar, and there's several others. It's getting hard to even keep up.
I'll tell you what, there are so many talented content creators out there, and right. You guys I was telling you a precast, and I'm going to say it again right here. You guys have put out some of the best information. I don't want to hear about how you're not getting it right, because you are getting it right. And so you guys are putting out information almost on a daily basis about this Pac-12 realignment, Big 12, expansion is, I guess, what we should be calling it.
Right.
Because we do have Colorado, after 11 years, 12 years almost away from the Big 12 conference. It's being announced by Brett McMurphy and some other reputable sources out there that they have made the decision to go back to the Big 12 where they started and, kind of shore things up. What do you think really led to this, Nathan?
I think that Colorado has been mistreated by the conference for years. They have always been looked on. Whenever you've seen polls, Colorado's always at the bottom. And honestly, they were doing much better when they were in the middle of the country, playing against middle of the country schools that are more aligned. Yeah, they have some elite people that want to be playing in the Californias and the Pacific Coast regions, but the heart and soul of their school has always been Midwest. And they tried to do something that just didn't work. And I think it's okay to say, hey, I screwed up. Let's try to correct it. It's better to do that than to dig in your heels like some of these Pac-12 schools are going. And I know we'll talk about that, but instead of just adapting and moving on, taking the better opportunity, they just continue to back up until finally the wall broke behind them because there was no room to move forward.
Yeah, and we've been talking about this a lot, and we're kind of picking at Tony Altimore, but to be honest with you, there's every reason for it. You've had so much misinformation out there, and not just from him, even from what I would consider actual trusted journalists, John Wilner, John Canzano, and GK himself. I mean, not that I should really expect a commissioner to come out and say, yeah, we're screwed, but he hasn't been truthful during this whole thing.
No.
And then he's had members of the media that he's been able to dish off a lot of this information. He went into a bunker until this past weekend, and just didn't have anything to say since January. And that followed his last statement, which was, we got a media deal that's going to come together here in the next few weeks. Everybody was expecting it first of the year. It's been pushed back over and over and over again. And yet every time you report something that you hear from ESPN, who's a media deal partner, Fox, who's a media deal partner, any of these college football reporters like Dennis Dodd, who's been doing this thing since 1995, 96, which is when the Big 12 came into being a conference at that time, you know, right around that time. He's covered every CFP. He's been to all the BCS bowls. This is a guy who has, you know, source after source after source. He has no dog in the fight, but every time he was reporting, you had guys like Tony Altimore sitting there saying it was just BS, and you know, it's of course the Big 12 lobbing grenades. My thing is obviously, to me, it was the Big 10 that lobbed the big bomb that blew this whole thing.
Right.
And they've just been, but why they've decided to push it all off on the Big 12 is beyond me.
They needed to blame somebody. If they could you imagine, they actually need something from the Big 10. They needed scheduling. They needed other support for the educational stuff. They could not whack the guy that is going to be helping them. So the very next group you blame is the people that really don't have a dog in the fight. They're just sitting off to the side and saying, hey, we're opportunistic. If something comes up, we'll take it. But this drives me nuts, Jason. I don't get this part. What good the people that are fans of the Pac or the Big 12, people that are fans of the ACC, the SEC, the Big 10, those people, which by the way is 75% of the country on the east side of the Mississippi River, those people, that whole group, millions and millions, what could they do to affect the contract for the media deal for the Pac-12? Nothing, absolutely nothing. And so all this disinformation that you got from the people you mentioned, and I'm only going to call out one person, that's Tony Altimore, and that's because he attacked me personally. He tried to not only ruin my channels, but he went out of his way to talk bad about me to other people out in the, whatever you want to call it, influence area. And as far as I'm concerned, that bad people do bad things, and people that associate themselves with those bad people will get judged by their associations. So going forward, am I going to carry that with me? No. In fact, I've already turned the page on all these guys. But at the end of the day, you and I and the people that are out paying attention, we're not going to let this stuff slip. If say the Pac-12 stays together and they get some, like they get a Florence Nightingale savior type of a contract, and they stay together another 3 years. Does anybody believe that it's going to be more than 3 years? Because if you're looking around, everybody's a shark. The Pac-12 is the only tuna. And so eventually they're going to get gobbled. It's just a matter of time.
Well, and that's what we've been arguing this whole time, right, Nathan?
Right.
I mean, when you start thinking about it, guys, we've known from day one, whether or not they put together some kind of deal, whether it was multi-streaming, mostly streaming, or mostly linear, which we knew it was never going to be mostly linear. That was the biggest lie that was put out there all day long, right? And they put it out there from day one all the way, and, you know, and obviously a guy like Brett Yormark has been doing laps around George Kliavkoff since he showed up in Dallas to the Big 12 offices. You know, they had their option to, and their chance to be able to fix this, you know, to be able to really to kill the Big 12. They didn't do it. They had multiple opportunities, and they've continued to stick their nose in the air. But this idea that they were somehow going to put together some kind of a media rights package and with somebody that was going to keep them alive past even the next 2, 3, 4 years. Let's say they did something for now, which is what you continue to hear, right? What was going to happen 3 years down the line? And it was going to be almost all streaming. If you sign this deal, and this is where somebody just said something about Oregon in here. I guess they've got a meeting scheduled. Right?
They do. Oregon State actually had one yesterday. Nobody even knew about. So Oregon State's already even had a meeting. Coming into today, they were preloaded for this information.
Right. And the thing about it, though, so what are you going to do? I mean, if you're Oregon and now you know that this thing is coming apart, and that'd be the next thing I would ask you is, first off, I mean, we can talk about Coach Prime and his deal on there, as I was talking about, but what dominoes are about to fall as far as you're concerned? Because to me, I don't know how they've ever kept it to where they really thought this was going to work out. But I didn't think that even if they had some kind of deal that would kind of link them to the next 4 or 5 years. Then what happens? I think it would have just put them further behind the 8 ball. I think Colorado finally realized that. And in view of the fact that they were losing money anyway, even on the academic side of things, I don't know how you could have not done this.
I don't either. These are smart people, right? The sports is a very small portion of what these schools do. If you've followed my show at all, my 2 shows, we've gone into the data and we've broken down the numbers of the things that really matter. And these presidents are making decisions on billion-dollar deals. So when we're talking about a few $1 million, and it literally is a few $1 million, a small percentage to just protect your sports, the rest of the school doesn't even care. The difference is they have sports has an outsized effect on the rest of the school's perception. And so what we're really talking about here is access. Where they were who was gonna broadcast their shows, who was gonna be their partners. So if you talk next steps, this is what I'm gonna see. I think Oregon State's gonna make a play to come in. I'm surprised them and Washington State weren't doing that weeks ago. So let's just assume that Colorado's the only one that happens tonight, and they have a meeting tomorrow, and the whole thing blows up over the weekend. After that point, the two that you have to think about are Washington and Oregon. And if Washington honestly cannot get into the Big Ten, I do not see them staying in a dead Pac-12. I think Washington and Oregon, and I said this back, I don't know, 6-8 months ago, I said this could happen. They actually joined the Big 12, and it could be for a short amount of time. Maybe it's only for 5 years. Who cares? Because it raises the profile of the entire conference. And now the conference can actually make a claim that they are the 3rd best conference. They are right behind the SEC and the Big Ten. And no longer are we talking about having any of these other dwarf set-aside conferences. They're just not there. So the 3, which is something Mo and Vision came up with, again, we talked about that on my show last night. He actually laid it out where 3 AQ conferences cover most of the teams that were competing every year. It's insane how the consolidation will work. And I definitely think Oregon and Washington could go to the Big 12. I think they could leave in 5 years, raise the profile, keep that money going, and everybody wins.
I agree with you 100%. 100%. And guys, thank you so much, everybody, for it. We've got a super chat here. Thank you so much, Chicken. We appreciate it so much. And a new member
Lamb.
Too. JC Lamb, a new member. Hey, for our new members, and you know what? We're going to have a better one than this coming up. But right now, let's go with.
Good job, JC.
Appreciate it. I do the same thing for.
I just wanted
for Chicken and for Lemon Line. Those are our first 3 that I know of subscribers. Anybody who wants to become a subscriber, make sure you jump on to the website just to the right of Bomber, and at the bottom there it's -CFP or at CFP-pod /join. And on YouTube, you can make sure you jump in there. Obviously, Chicken, thanks so much. Norman, he's sitting here beside me, crashed out. So appreciate that a lot. I actually should have the Norman cam on him. I'll pop it over there in just a second. But thanks so much, everybody, for all that. Yeah, please do.
Your members and the people that have followed you, I've watched your show now since I started. I think you and I first spoke last fall. And the way that you've built up your show, and now you've got an actual studio where people can actually be a subscriber. I'm getting subscribers the same way. The content is what matters. And I really recommend anybody who's watching this show or anybody who's watching it recorded, think about joining Jason's channel, because you will be at the front of all the information as it comes out, and you won't be catching up like George Klyavkov is tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, thanks a lot for that. And again, I'm typing this into the comments, but thanks so much, Lemon. I know you did become one yesterday. As soon as it popped up there, anybody who already has become one, Chicken, I know you already have as well. And JC, thank you guys so much for becoming our first subscribers. We are definitely, make sure that you jump over there to where he was pointing to, and you can become a subscriber as well. As little as $2.99 a month. That's less than what you pay for a Starbucks. It's about half price of the Starbucks. Right. So jump in there. It will help us out so much. The free way to help is just make sure you hit that like button. So important. We have 26 folks in here right now. We didn't really get a chance to promote this so much. It kind of came last second. But it's so important for this to continue to hit that algorithm for content creators such as myself and Bomber here. Bomber, let everybody know real quick how to find you and to subscribe to your channel, because these guys to me are as good as it gets when it comes to this information on realignment. And we got another guy about to come in as well. But Bomber, let us know.
All right. First, I want to tell you, I just sent you a DM in Twitter. Check that out. Okay. Now to everybody else, I've got two shows that happen on the same channel. One of them is Big 12 Mafia. If you just do that search, it should pop up. The second thing is the Holy Rivals, and that's really supposed to be centered around BYU and Utah and the Holy War. I hope Utah comes to the Big 12. That would be amazing. But we cover a lot of stuff. We're not just an opinion show. If you go and look through my history, I've got the show I just did last night that's about this A3, these new conference alignments that very easily could be coming. And Jason, I'll send you those slides so you have them. And then we also talk realignment. We talk about Big 12 stuff. You're still in the Big 12 if you're an Oklahoma fan. And then we're going to cover the rest of college football. So yes, definitely. We got great shows, but we're here for Jason.
Hey, man, thanks a lot. And I will be appearing on his show right after we get off of this one as well. So right now we're going to bring on one of my favorite sources from the ACC conference, talking college football with JJ Kitchen. This is JJ Kitchen. Welcome back to the show, JJ. I appreciate you coming in, man. How you doing?
What's going on, brother? It's been a busy day between my career, what I do for work, but then, man, we got ACC media days, we got Big 12 media days, and actually Big 10 media days, but then we got some Big 12 news, man. It's Deion Sanders in Colorado going to the Big 12. That's some big news, man. I'll tell you what, just picked up some this new drink. It's actually Sheets here in Pittsburgh. It's called the Tony Altimore Tears. I just got him on. I just got him there. It's on discount. So
okay, you got to send me that. I'm glad to meet you, by the way. It's nice to meet you. But I need some of that drink. How do I get that link to buy that stuff?
You got to go to the ain't12.com.
Right.
And,
okay.
Produces it pretty quickly now.
Hey,
the
Jason.
12 and on. Yeah, that all that 12 and on stuff is something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hey, Jason. Jason, show that picture I just sent you.
Yeah, I'm on it right now.
This is something you're gonna love. This. I just got this DM to me.
Let me pull it up. Hold on, just a second here, Bomber.
Jason's got technology.
This is hilarious. Did this really happen?
It did. It's real. That was live.
Wow.
I want to give a shout out to a couple of people while I'm waiting. Jason, is that okay?
Go for it, man.
Jim Williams. People have been so critical at Jim Williams. He is the nicest person I think maybe I've ever met. And I would really encourage everybody not only follow on Twitter and on Forbes magazine, but I would also tell you that when he's speaking, don't tease him. Don't rip him. Don't do any of this stuff because people are taking advantage of him because he's soft-spoken. And I'm just here to say Jim knows his crap, and I got his back.
Sergeant Pickles, thank you so much for the super chat here. I appreciate that a lot. Bomber has earned, and I told you so. Go dog. Yeah, hey, you definitely have, Bomber. And again, these are guys, and JJ included, we've been on the forefront of this thing, all of us guys. We've known we're not going to sit here and just give you opinion and crap and stuff like that of what we wanted to see happen. I can tell you right now, I've never been of the mind that I wanted to see less conferences. That's not where I'm at. I haven't been in that way. Now, once I've seen and realized, and we've all got sources, Jim Williams being probably the best source that you could, him, and you've got guys like him and Bob Thompson that are on top of this thing in ways that nobody else is. And they're getting attacked while guys like Tony Altimore and, who, as we see here, he got his account suspended. I can only wonder what he possibly could have been saying to get a suspended account on Twitter, now known as X. But they X'd him out. It's just a weird deal, right? But to me, here's the deal. With guys like that have been putting it out, and we've got all sources as well. We kind of know what's happening, and we've just put out information that we know that we can justify and be true. When you're a guy like Tony Altimore and you've been dumping out a bunch of stupid numbers that don't mean anything, right? And you get into arguments and you start calling people 12 and on, and the whole truck stop conference thing. This has gotten ugly for reasons that had nothing to do with the Big 12. The Big 12 was trying to survive. I understand that it got ugly on both sides, but this was, To me, this was a Pac-12 thing. As an outsider, somebody looking at it from the ACC perspective, JJ, talk to me about how you felt about this.
Again, I would say really just like you guys are, and we've talked about this before. You know, we're the group of guys that want to see more conferences. The Power Five was as good as it was. Less conferences are bad for college football, but from an ACC perspective, you know, and I talked about it a little bit. I'm not shocked that it happened this quickly before the season started, because when you have your commissioner who's just been knocking back dates over and over and over again, you've basically said that you don't have a deal. And the amount of times that these athletic directors have come out numerous times that they, okay, well, hey, we're going to push it back, or we've seen this deal, we've seen this deal. They've done this horribly. And I tweeted out a little bit earlier today, you know, the demise of the Pac-12 is truly on themselves. Okay, I understand that the point of, you know, USC and UCLA leaving to go to the Big Ten. I understand that was the first phase, and the Big Ten really started this stuff this past summer. The SEC started it, you know, by taking Texas and Oklahoma. But the point is, though, they could have gotten a deal done earlier, but they continued to step over, dodge the bullets, try to figure out how long can we keep going. Now this was inevitable. And I think, you know, look, is the Big 12 adding a team that is, you know, in terms of, you know, athletically, are they like the top echelon? No. Okay, but you're going to get Deion Sanders, you're going to get those guys in your conference. But the majority of it, people have to realize is this is a big issue for the Pac-12, because now that the first one has gone since after USC and UCLA, now the floodgates have opened, because there's clearly no deal on the table. Okay, clearly there's been lack of communication. People have been looking to go out and looking for other opportunities. You know, we've heard a little bit today. I saw a couple things here and there about potentially Oregon and Washington talking about trying to go to the Big 12. I don't know how much that's true. From what I'm hearing between people from the ACC, there is plenty of talk. Now it's really heating up that the Pac-12 needs the ACC. You know, the ACC has been staying put in terms of what they want to do, but now it's like, well, if you're the ACC, can you get to ESPN and say, look, instead of adding the entire conference, do we just take maybe 4 of the corner schools? You take Washington, Oregon, Arizona, Arizona State. Do you take those 4 teams, put them into a pot out there, and then be able to create a schedule where it makes sense for those teams to help alleviate the amount of traveling they have to do? So in reality, you know, I feel horrible for the Pac-12. But, you know, when it comes to Tony Altimore, you know, I give everybody a fair shake. But the minute that guy started talking about how research money is involved with academic money, research money is involved with athletic money, immediately you lost all credibility. That is such a crock of shit. That's never been a thing. That's never going to happen. These university presidents and chancellors do not care about football. They care about academics and research money. That's staying within the institution. That would never, ever touch athletic money, ever.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%, 100%. And that's the whole thing, is he has done it. And not only has he started talking about it, but he's doubled down on it and attacked everybody else with his numbers that meant diddly squat. Right. But the same can be true. And I mean, I'm not just going to make this the Tony Altimore thing, because it's not just about him. It's just as much about guys like Wilner and Canzano, who you expect to be better than that, quite honestly.
Yeah.
JJ.
Yeah.
Because these are guys that have been journalists for a very long time, and they're supposed to be better than that. Period. That's all there is to it. And if the fact that they haven't been is what's wrong. Now their credibility, like Jim Williams has said, where your credibility has gone is right out the freaking window, because now everybody knows that you can't be trusted in what you're saying. And it's just, it's a shame, but this is the way that it is, you know?
Yep. And I think that's really the biggest thing is, you know, you saw the agendas a little bit come out to where they're trying to protect the Pac-12, and I understand what they're saying and what they want. And it's trying to keep the sport healthy, but it's just, it was never going to work. If anything, they should have created more pressure within the Pac-12 conference to just complete a deal. You know, they should have taken the Apple money worth of streaming and then maybe a little bit of Ion. But, you know, for me personally, I knew it was going to go sideways real quick when the CW came out and said, look, we've created a partnership with the ACC. So now, you know, the ACC has ESPN plus the ABC Disney Network, and now you have the CW. You just put the Pac-12 in a bad situation. Now these schools are going to be looking to leave there as soon as possible, you know, and I just think a lot of these guys, and again, I thought you guys brought up a good point. You know, my guy, Jim Williams, man, I can tell you when you know, he's incredible for what he does, the amount of knowledge that he drops, especially on Twitter, and everybody, he answers almost everybody. But the minute I saw the debate on, I can't remember what channel it was on, but it was Josh Neighbors and my guy, Kuz's corner. And just listening to Altimore and the Pac-12 guys be like, well, if it's $5 million more, we'll know we're not going to go. If it's $10 million more, we know we'll think about it, but we're definitely not going to go. It's like, guys, you can't even get in that realm. How do you think you're going to get more money from the TV networks when your two top teams left the conference? I just don't understand that. They could have salvaged this thing by getting a contract done. If a negotiated deal was done, none of these teams are leaving, in my opinion. But when you're a school already, and we talked about this about a month ago, when now you're cutting the athletic budget and now you're concerned about how are we going to spend money? We need to cut. We need to make sure we're making cuts. We need to save. Now you're in trouble academically and athletically. So Absolutely. It was only a matter of time.
And you know what? And Bomber, I think that's a great point to start on there. When you started hearing Washington State, Washington, some of these schools talking about that, hey, they're in spending freeze and things like that.
Right.
First off, you already knew that it didn't have anything to do with athletics and academic money are not. It's not shared between the two sides of the schools. It's not. We all know that's not the way it works. They're Washington, in the fact that the one that really got me was when Kuz and was it Naylor? Josh Neighbors that were on that. They did that deal where on Mark's show, and he kept throwing up there that Washington making, $700 million in research spending or research money that was coming in, acting like that had anything to do whatsoever with the other. And when they asked him the question, and this even came from his own guy that was supposed to be on his team, the Locked On Big Pac-12 guy, asked him, well, how much of that money is actually spent on academics? He couldn't even answer it.
Yeah.
He couldn't even answer it.
At the end of the day, I think we need to turn the page on Altimore. We're giving him a lot more of our brain space than he deserves. If everybody starts talking about growth, then we start talking about what does the ACC do next, because they're the next up, right? And I think that they definitely have something they can keep together if they can keep their top guys. They have the same problem the Pac did. They have like 3 or 4 top schools, and then you have everybody else that's trying to fight for the pieces because they're not sure they have a guaranteed landing spot. So that's the next step.
The ACC though is that the difference is that they have a long-term deal that the ESPN is not going to freaking torpedo its own league.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's saying that. I don't think anybody's. It would start with the members. It's not going to come from the. Yeah, it's not going to come from the broadcast partners.
And that was the main reason that I wanted JJ on here. But let's ask this real quick. How much, and let me ask you this question. How much do you think that the Coach Prime hire affected CU's move?
100%. 100%. There's no way the Big 12 is taking a 1-11 team. And let's be honest, they've made the bowl game one time. They made a bowl game one time their entire time in the Pac-12. If anything, the athletic director from Colorado deserves a raise because he saved that organization. He saved that school by hiring Deion Sanders. It's case in point. And for instance, like the ACC and the Pac-12 are apples and oranges. They're in two completely different spaces. You have a deal all the way to 2036. Florida State, all these schools can talk about trying to leave. When we saw that in the spring, and Jim Phillips talked about it at the media days recently. You saw that it was more of a ploy to get to basically, it's not even unequal revenue sharing. It's more of incentivized revenue sharing.
Right.
I think me personally, I'm fine with that. If you're doing well, like for instance, heck, in the 2021 season, Pitt had the most distributions of any school because they won the ACC championship game, plus their time in the ACC tournament for basketball. I'm fine with that. But the biggest thing at this point is I think the ACC needs to get with the ESPN and start to figure out what the pro rata is and what they're going to do potentially to add Power 5 teams. I don't see the ACC going anywhere, and here's why. The ESPN is not going to devalue their own network. They're not going to do it. They are a 50% partner in the ACC network. That's the thing a lot of people don't understand. So if ESPN allows Florida State, Clemson, all these schools, if they wanted to leave, which in my opinion, honestly, even if they close the gap a little bit, I would say right now they're, and eventually between the SEC, ACC will be about 30 million behind each year. If they can close the gap between 15 to 20 million in a way where they can negotiate money, especially with the incentives where you're going to get at least $15 million more, $20 million more potentially, no one's going anywhere. But that deal in general from 2036, no one's paying $500 to $700 million. You can't afford it. You can't afford it. It'll crucify your entire team, and let alone the school. I think right now the biggest thing at this point is to make sure these schools need to figure out a way to make sure that athletes do not become employees of the university, because then guess what? Your Olympic sports are gone. Swimming, baseball, softball, tennis, track and field, everything's gone. I think that's really what's on the focus of their mind right now. And right now, the ACC at this point, they need to get aggressive and find at least 2 to 4 of those schools out in the Pac-12 and create an alliance, or add them to the conference just to say, look, we'll take out these 4 schools, maybe even 5 schools, and then we'll go from there.
That's a great question. Bomb, let me just ask you, where do these dominoes fall? What do you see happening now?
I think it's a fantastic idea, and they should have done it a long time ago, right? Oregon and Washington deserve to be. Frankly, I want them both in the Big Ten. I'm a Washington fan, so but that should have happened a long time ago. Why hasn't it happened? We all know the answer. It's because the gore that the ACC has. There's an argument. There's 2 arguments. One, if they sign it now, they're into it for till 2036, and they basically can't get out of it. Like was just mentioned, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. So that change is a big deal because they want to be in the Big Ten. So that's one reason why they wouldn't sign. The other reason they wouldn't sign is because there's a lot of complications with scheduling and everything else. If you only pick 4 schools up in the West, they can play 3 like each one, so that's 3 games. The rest of the games, you're flying across the country. And believe me, as a BYU fan, we're used to flying all over the place. We're really, us and Notre Dame are the ones that probably travel the most in the country.
You're right.
Washington and Oregon are not used to that. They're used to playing home games. They like to be in the Pacific Northwest, and I cannot see them flying to Wake Forest. I cannot see them flying to even Pitt. I think they would have to do selected games, and they have ego. If they didn't have ego, the Pac-12 wouldn't be dead. They would have already built something with the partners they have. This is a deal-breaking thing. Do they deserve to be in the ACC and a stronger ACC? I would not have a problem with that. That would be great. It would help my Washington Huskies. But do I think it's practical? And is it a common sense solution? I don't think it is.
Well, and the thing is ESPN and Jim Williams has said this a lot. ESPN is not just going to rip up a contract that right now has them profiting.
I agree with that. I'm agreeing with that.
Right.
Well, and what's the gore say if you bring people in? Does it open it up for people to leave? Because I don't know. Nobody's been able to.
That's a good question. Does the grant of rights, does it open up anything for additions or anything like that?
Right, and we can't see the gore because it's locked up in a hermetically sealed vault somewhere in North Carolina or something.
You have to go to Greensboro.
Yeah, and so the chances that we know that in the public, if there's a gore issue or not, the only people who would know are the people that can go in and see it. So I don't know.
The only people in there would know. But if I had to guess, the grant of rights will never change. Okay, you can add teams, but what value does it bring in terms of distributions? We don't know that either. But I can tell you this,
that's true.
You know, whether it's Oregon can talk about not wanting to fly to Boston College or Wake Forest or whatever. But guess what? If they don't want to do that, okay, they'll fly to Rutgers, they'll fly to Penn State, they'll fly to Ohio State. They're still traveling a ton. Either way, they're screwed.
For $40 million more dollars every year.
Yeah, but
for $40 million, for $40 million, $40 million in the Big Ten versus you're basically doing it at cost to be in the ACC.
But they have the same. If they add those schools, they're not going to get $40 million. You're adding more pieces to the pie. You're cutting.
We don't know that. We don't know that.
The president even said that. The president even said that we don't want to add teams because it'll cut more into the pie.
Which is why they would.
It's not the same as the Big 12's.
But they would keep their. They would keep their value what's currently now though, which isn't great. It's not anywhere near the ACC.
Remember, it's that whole additive and dilutive deal, right?
I understand. I'm not saying they lose money to bring them in. Don't misunderstand. But I think if they bring them in, it's not going to add money to the contract outside of just paying for the school.
Right.
It's not going to increase the overall payout.
I don't think it will. I think it would be dilutive, right?
And
even right now.
Because of travel, it is dilutive. That's why it hasn't happened. That's why George Kliavkoff is the worst commissioner in the history of college athletics. He has no understanding. He came from MGM Entertainment. He was dealing with gamblers. He has nothing to do with sports and understanding this is either a salesman job like Brett Yormark or it's a relationship thing. He couldn't do either. And by the way, how does he walk from here to there without being able to put 2 sentences together without saying something completely idiotic?
It's why he's been quiet since January.
Why did you hire a guy that can't communicate? He's supposed to be the face of your conference, not the president's. We're hearing from Robbins because Klyavkov can't put 3 sentences together without making somebody mad.
Yeah, and everybody was pissed at Robbins from Arizona. He's one of the guys that actually understood the Pac-12 and what's going on. He was at Stanford before he was at Arizona. Right. So this isn't new territory for him.
No.
I'll go back to the question that what happens next? Do the remaining 4 and I mean I would add it in this, is Utah still going to be holding out for a Big Ten invite, or do you get the remaining 4 corner schools now to make that move?
You're asking me? I think what happens is Utah is going to try to keep that thing together. They want to keep that P5, which I'm not using anymore, by the way, Jason. I'm using AQ or A5, A4, A3. P5 is an obsolete term. But they want to keep that status, and Utah, I guarantee you, wants to go to the college football playoff in 2 years. I mean, 2 years in a row. They want to earn credibility across the country, and then they want to be invited to the Big Ten. They're gonna be kings, the big fish in a small pool.
Who the hell told them that winning the Pac-12 is going to get them into the Big Ten? Or
not winning the Pac-12. It's the playoff. It's the playoff.
Into the playoff.
But they're not going to.
No.
I'm saying they're not going to. I'm telling you that's not going to happen. Their team this year, everybody says, is one of their best teams ever.
They're going to try to hold it together. They're going to try to stay in the pack, is what you're telling me.
I think so. They're going to be there.
I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked.
So this is the only reason I'm just following breadcrumbs. You guys saw on the stage, what was the one school everybody quoted coming out of Pac-12 media days? It was Utah. Yeah. Utah's AD talked. Utah's president talked. Utah's coach talked. Utah's #1 quarterback talked. If you look back at all the news that's been reported in the last week, it's all had Utah at the front of it because nobody else wanted to be there. Utah and Washington, Washington and Oregon want to be gone. You have the other 3 corners. Arizona State's lost. I think CU and AU have been looking for an out for a while. And Oregon State and Washington State are just looking for a life raft.
So right now you think that Arizona State and Utah are going to try to hang out. That's that whole AAU thing. They're going to try to stay in the pack until they can and somehow be able to. If you're Utah, you think you're going to qualify for the CFP from the Pac 9, Pac 8, Pac whatever it is.
Yes, and on my show next, I'm going to have Wild Ute, and you can ask him yourself. He's really pissed about this, by the way. Utah fans. Look, I like Utah, right? Them and BYU are a great rivalry, but they are absolutely delusional.
Delusional, yes.
Why wouldn't you take Pitt? Why wouldn't you take Pitt, who's been sitting over there, does a ton of research? Why don't you add them to the Big Ten? They're a better fit than Utah is.
Way before Utah ever gets into the picture, Pitt would be in that picture. Guaranteed.
Look, I agree with you guys. I'm totally
guaranteed. They will have had 10 schools tell them no before they ever get to Utah, and they still won't want to do it. You know why? You know, the one thing that we've talked about in this, and JJ, I'm going to let you talk right after this. The one thing that we've talked about this a lot, and I started off saying that the culture part is bullshit, and I still believe it is, because the football field doesn't care about culture, right? Or as far as what kind of students you have versus whether you're religious or not. You're not moving the damn campuses,
right? That's true, what I mean? Unfortunately, yeah.
But what I'll tell you is here's where Utah will scream. These folks are screaming culture right now, which is why they don't want to go to the Big 12.
Right.
And yet they think that their culture fits anywhere even kind of close to the Big 10. It's insanity. JJ, step in here and talk to me. We talked about this on that whole Big 10 thing before, and where you felt like that was headed. Tell me what you think about this idea that Utah would be even a candidate.
So in my opinion, I don't think Utah's a candidate at all. I don't even think they're even being thought about. The only 2 schools that would really ever be considered from the Pac-12 for the Big Ten is Oregon and Washington. That's it. Those are the only 2 schools that could potentially go there to create any value, because one, Oregon will have the brand, the Phil Knight money, and I think Washington, actually the Seattle area, plus that brand of Washington, I think they could actually be a really good fit, just because one with USC and UCLA. But Here's the problem with that, though. UCLA and USC have stated numerous times that they do not want any other Pac-12 teams in there. And the new Petiti, who is now the new commissioner of the Big Ten, basically said the presidents went to him and said, look, we didn't want Kevin Warren here anymore because he wanted to go rogue and start adding all these teams. We want only these teams left in here because we want all the money for these teams. That's it. We want the money for these teams because once you start adding more teams, you're cutting more into the pie. So each school is getting less and less money. These guys know what they're doing. The Big Ten's not just going to randomly add, especially to save these teams. If Utah's smart, if they're smart, if the Big 12 calls them, they better jump on board as fast as they can. Because here's what's going to happen. Next year starts the college football playoff where you have 12 teams go in there. Right now, Colorado's going to leave. If one more school leaves in the Pac-12, who's to say this group doesn't get back together and say, well, now we're not going to do the Power 5. It'll be the Power 4. The 4 Power 4 teams will get in no matter what, whoever wins the conference, one group of 5 team, and then at large. Then what are you going to do? So then the Pac-12 is in a major issue. So we haven't even entered that portion of yet where you're in the college football playoff, 12 teams. They could change this before it starts. We don't even know what's going to happen with that yet. So if you're Utah, if you're Arizona, if you want to hang on for dear life, that's great. I mean, at this point, I've already pretty much solidified that Stanford, Cal, teams like that, they're pretty much willing to die out there. I mean, that's probably what they're going to do at this point. Your teams at this point are Arizona State, Arizona, Washington, Oregon, and Utah. Those schools need to find a way to get out of there. And if the Big 12 calls you, you better answer because at this point now you've tossed it around. You totally screwed over San Diego State, where if you sign a deal earlier, you already have San Diego State added in there now. This team, Colorado, never even leaves to begin with. So you butcher that relationship. They go back to the Mountain West. They're basically done with it. So again, it just comes back to the Pac-12 and Kliavkov, who's just done a horrendous job. I mean, it's like
Brett Yormark's been running laps around this guy, man. He's like working out like you. Look at you. They're calling you all-star in there in the comments there, JJ.
The trap.
You are pretty big. It's true.
I'll tell you what. I played college sports, so that's why. That's the only reason why, guys. I love it. Good. Usually, I would not be wearing something like this. It's usually a t-shirt and some pitch shit. But today is definitely a different day. I can tell you that. Not being in the studio, but I can tell you this, guys. The Pac-12. If you're Utah and you're any of these teams, I really hope they figure it out and start realizing the Big Ten's not coming to save them. The SEC's not coming to save them. Make sure if the Big 12 calls you, you're jumping on board. But guess what? I'm telling you, from what I heard today, and funny, Jim Williams was hearing the same thing. The Pac-12 called the ACC today. I can tell you that for a fact. You can bet your bottom dollar them guys are involved with the ACC, and now individual schools are calling the ACC. Because here's the thing. Here's what's so crazy about all this realignment. Year ago, 2 years ago, was all about markets. Now it's about brands and eyeballs. Now it's about viewership, rivalries. Now it's on the board, baby. Now it's about finding out how can we get more eyeballs involved.
And you know what? JJ, I've thought about that. And I think the reason that our shows have picked up is because it is the brands and it is the rivalries. It's the passion of the fans in college sports. This is not at professional athletics. We're talking about people who are born and bred and absolutely bleed for their universities. And the level of passion is so much different than in professional sports that our shows, our collaborations is what's going to rule the day.
Yeah. And I think that's what it comes down to is just, and again, I think everybody on this show right now, we were looking at the facts. There was no agenda around it. Even when we all criticize each conference for specific reasons. I looked at, for instance, the ACC. I have been very vocal about how the ACC should have added certain schools. Okay, for example, I mean personally, I would not add, like for instance, everybody talked about UConn. I would not add UConn just because I think they're in a good situation where they're at with basketball. They're a basketball school. Leave them be. But a team like SMU. The ACC should be going after SMU hard. The ACC should be going after Washington and Oregon hard because you want those guys and you want those teams, but also Arizona and Arizona State. Grab those two schools. You're able to go back, and if they're able to go back and say, look, if ESPN says, look, we're not going to give you any more money to add those schools, then you don't add those schools. But it's hard for me to believe that you'd add a Power 5 school from all the way across the country in a different time zone where you're adding more eyeballs, more viewership, bigger brands. There's no way they're not adding more money into that. There's no way.
Sure.
The problem is the gore. We
Right.
don't
That grant of
know
rights is,
if they
can
had
you get
6.
around that? And
Yeah,
I
if they
think
had.
they intentionally
Oh,
wrote
sorry.
it bad in the ACC because of the fact that they knew that they wouldn't be able to get around it. I've heard that a bunch, right?
And,
Yeah.
and
Go
it would
ahead.
have happened already if they could.
I think, yeah,
Those
that's
schools
why
would have already been in the ACC, I think.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
I
And
think
here's the thing.
potentially that.
Go ahead. Go ahead, JJ. Finish.
I think potentially that they would have definitely been added already. But like we
Right.
talked about too, you know, I'm just saying, you know, the travel and stuff like that, I understand that. But if you close the gap, there's no way the Big Ten is going to get more than what the billions of dollars they're getting now in 5 or 6 years. If you're able to close the gap between 15 to 20 million by adding 4 different schools, I think that's a common sense jump. I think with right now, those schools were sitting tight, thinking Kliavkov had that deal ready, and in reality, he lied. He lied to those schools, and I tried telling people the grant of rights will hold you there till 2036. But how much do you want to bet that ESPN does the same exact thing that it did with what Fox did with the Big 12, and they renegotiate at least 2 or 3 years earlier? Because here's the thing, ESPN is not going to devalue their own network. They're not going to do it. I love these comments, by the way, guys. Holy hell, this is some really funny
Hilarious. Hilarious.
So, Jason.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to tell you that Sergeant Pickles is a fantastic guy. If you get him on your show,
I like him, man, and I agree with him on a lot of what he's saying. I hadn't gotten that word in a minute. So go ahead.
Yeah. I just want to say, and I got to go here in a little bit. I got my own show. I'm going to be popping off the bottom of the hour. But I think what really matters, and I really appreciate what JJ's saying. And JJ, I need to get your contact info because we need to talk because there's a lot of stuff that you're saying. I would love to do a show with you. We have a bunch of data that we can share with you, and I think you would absolutely love where that goes. I have some really good contributors, and I think we can do some stuff. So, Jason, send me his contact info, and then we'll connect online. The one thing I want to say, and then I'll turn the show back over to you, Jason. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
That this realignment stuff, everybody wants it to be over. People are praying for realignment to end. And unfortunately, it is not going to end. Buckle up. I said this on Flugar's show, the Peeker on the Corner. This is the end of the beginning. It's not the beginning of the end, right? Churchill said that. And what that means is we've gotten through this first phase, this first chapter, all of us together. We all know more about media deals than we ever would. We all know more about gores and board of regents and all these things. All of us are a lot smarter than some of the people that have been commentating for years. And what's important is that if the ACC can stay together and the Big 12 can really get 4 more P5 schools, I could easily see 4 AQ conferences, and the P5 goes away. And in 2026, the Pac-12 sloughs off, and then those schools are orphans. They have to find homes. And we are literally talking with 4 conferences that are within $10 or $15 million of each other. That for the next 20 years, it could be that way. So people that are saying it's P2 or any of this nonsense that these 2 conferences,
you're
SEC
at minimum 10 years away from that.
I don't even think it's ever going to happen. You disenfranchise too many schools to do that.
I think so
Can you imagine a conference with only 32 games? Sorry. You have 2 conferences with 32 members or 36 members. That's not enough. There's 132 schools that play in top football. You got to at least get half of them. So I A3 or A4, I want to support JJ and the ACC. I want to hear more from him on that. And go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I'm finish your thought. I love it. I'm agreeing with you.
I just want to say to all the Oklahoma fans that are watching this show, you guys are in a perfect position. The ACC is going to be a great spot for you. And I can't wait to watch you guys competing. Please beat Texas this year and then come to Provo and let BYU run all over you. Okay? That's the end of the world.
That'll get you muted right now.
Watch BYU running all over you in Provo. That's all I'm saying. That would make my year, right? BYU goes 1-11.
I've already told you that one that worries me about Oklahoma this year. The Texas game, you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
The one I worry about, it's that one and probably Jalen Daniels and Kansas, but it would be BYU. That's a concerning game. I've been to BYU. I've been to Proville and watched Texas get their butt handed to them before.
Right.
I know what it's like there. I'm concerned, little concerned.
I always want to say goodbye. I got to
love bar, but thank you so much for coming in, Bomber. And
bet.
I'll be in shortly. I'll be in there shortly.
It's Big 12 Mafia. Go to that channel, and you're more than welcome
The
to come
Holy
and
Rivals
talk.
show, correct?
No,
Right.
well, Big 12 Mafia tonight. Holy Rivals is with you, but he's going to be there. And then JJ, if you want to join, I'll once I get your contact info, I'll send it over. I'd love to have you in that call if you want to do it.
I appreciate it, brother. Honestly, man, it was good to meet you. And yeah, we'll link up for sure, and we'll get some stuff, and we'll get it going for sure.
All right, everybody, stick around for Hall of Fame college football with Jason Watkins.
Thanks a lot, Bomber. I appreciate you, buddy.
Peace.
All right, bud.
See ya. All right, bye-bye.
All right, guys, thanks so much for everybody coming in here. And listen, I appreciate all this interaction in here. We do have almost 50 folks in here right now, still only about 20-something likes. Make sure you hit that like button. That's the easiest way to make sure that we get out there and are seen throughout the country, and particularly on this subject. There's a lot of other channels on tonight I normally wouldn't be on right now because I'm actually going up against a lot of other people that I normally wouldn't. What I would tell you is this is an important piece of information. I know all you Oklahoma fans want to talk about this craziness with David Stone and Williams Nwaneri. I'm going to tell you, relax. Everybody relax. This is what happens in recruiting. There's a long ways to go. Nothing that has changed as from yesterday. So you've got Williams Nwaneri is going to take a trip to Oregon. Relax. It's okay. It's okay. He's pretty much locked in. If you know anything about these families, like Williams Nwaneri's family from Nigeria, they're going to be very thorough. They're going to be very thorough. They're going to show up to these visits and make sure that everything's going to be fine. With David Stone, guys, he's recruiting for Oklahoma. He's recruiting for Oklahoma. Everybody calm down, okay? We're not going to get into that a bunch today. I'm not going to do it. I believe that they're going to be fine, okay? They're going to be fine. All right. Now, we got to recruit while you were on. We got to recruit while you're on, okay? Who we talking about?
I was going to say, hit him up, tell him who it is. While you're looking that up, Jason, just everybody, I would say too, please hit the like button for Jason. It's a hell of a show. You know, me personally, I've been in the middle between work and a move. I love coming on here every Tuesday night. This is a hell of a show. It's one that's going to actually bring you great information, great guests, but more importantly, factual information. None of that other bullshit. None of the mainstream media bullshit. Guys, It's a great channel, great fans. Truly appreciate all of your comments, everything, especially to the questions in the comment section. You guys are phenomenal. You guys make this show really what it is too. By all the integration, all the questions. We love that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you what, Jason, this is an incredible channel you have running here. And two, it just, you continue to do it, man. Watching you at the Big 12 media days, asking questions, being there with Coach. Obviously I miss Coach.
Hey man, Coach was a rock star at Big 12 media days.
Damn, I was so happy when I saw you guys jumping on there. I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. Guys, make sure, please hit the like button. This channel is second to none. That's why I love coming on here and continuing to talk about college football, because this is where they're going to truly get the good stuff, the real actual information, recruiting, the conference realignment, in general. It's a very good channel, please. And again, to all the Pitt fans, the ACC fans joining, this is one to follow. So give Jason at the college, what is it?
Hall of Fame Jason. College Football Live. And so, hey, thanks a lot for that. I appreciate your kind words about it. Guys, we're doing the best thing. Yeah, and the one thing that you were completely right about is we have the best audience on YouTube. There's no two ways around it. These guys are amazing. We just love them to death. Coach is just talking about it right there. Hey, I'm excited about you guys. I'm excited about the direction that this channel's going in because of you guys. If you want to become a member, please do. You can see it's right there to the right of JJ, and on the bottom there under the HOF logo, you can jump in there, join for as low as $2.99 a month. That would help us a ton, but make sure you hit that like button. We need to make sure we have as many likes as possible. Okay. All right. Now, real quick, let's see. I'm going to go through some of these. Well, Hank Stone was supposed to be announcing tomorrow. Whoa, no, he's not. I haven't heard that. I haven't heard anything like that. Well, everything I would tell everybody, just relax, okay, about that stuff. We're gonna move on. All right. We got 5 of 7, even if not. Listen, right now, we talked about this weeks ago. And guys, I understand that everybody wants to see them get 8 guys, 9 guys on the defensive line. If they ended up with 2 or 3, it's still a foundational, huge move for Oklahoma this season, right? We're going to be talking to Nigel Smith on Saturday. You know, that's another guy that I believe in, and he's gotten even more projections for OU since
that's
we
all I've
talked
heard.
about it, right?
I'm an ACC guy.
And JJ's one of the ones. He's the one that's brought this to me from. He was working with guys like Aaron Donald out there working out. Aaron Donald knows that he's going to OU. Pitt was expecting that he might be involved there. He isn't. He's going to end up at OU. And you know what? I'm not gonna beat him to death over it on Saturday. He's gonna have time to make his decision. I want them to do that. What I would tell you is there's a reason why all these guys are firmly there, and whether or not they're looking around, this is what they're supposed to do. This is what they're supposed to do. This is what Venables wants them to do before they make that decision. He wants to make sure that they're done with all these trips and they know that they're making the right choice. And that includes David Stone. But Stone has been recruiting for OU. You
I'll
know,
tell you this too.
Jaden Jackson's there if David Stone isn't committed to Oklahoma, because I don't.
And when you do land Nigel Smith, you can thank Brent Venables. You can thank Brent Venables. That's who got that. So that guy is top echelon, man. And I really do hope, you know, Oklahoma fans really understand what he's building there. You know, everyone thought he was going to come in and just have this top 10 defense right away. He needs to build his culture and bring the guys in for that aggressive style defense, man. It's Oklahoma has not played a defense like that. This defense, what he's running, is extremely, extremely aggressive. And that's what you want.
So look, just right there, Kamori Moore, he's a teammate of Williams Winery. He committed. He's a 25 recruit. He already committed. So that kind of signals you already have another teammate of his from last year there on that Lee Summit North team. They own Kansas City. The Oklahoma owns Kansas City right now. Everybody, you know, this is going to work itself out. But again, even if I could sit here and tell you this all day, hell, we don't really know anything until December. So no matter what's going on, calm down. Everything's going to be fine. You know it's headed in the right direction. They just beat. I mean, if you're getting a top running back in the country over Lincoln Riley, then that tells you they're headed in the right direction, right? Defensively, if you're doing that as a defensive head coach, that tells you something, right? That's all I'm going to say about it. All right, moving forward. Now, Utah still holding out for that Big 12 or that Big 10 bid is surprising to me, JJ. It's very surprising to me. And I got to tell you that and I don't think it has anything to do with Coach Witt. I think that he's smart enough to know that his bread gets buttered in Texas now. He has actually built himself a pipeline into that Dallas area where he gets the kind of kids that work very well for Utah. It's amazing to me that you would even have that we even have to have this conversation, right? To me, you've got the Holy War. You've got Brett Yormark, who is forward thinking. You've got Coach Prime and Colorado, who is another rival it's a rivalry that's kind of been kicked off. They're a four-corner school. That's a good rivalry, and it could be an actual rivalry now that CU is going to be decent, right? I don't see a downside to the Big 12 for them. Oregon and Washington, I can understand them kind of holding out because they know that they're next in line. They've already been vetted and approved. They just have to have the invite, right?
Yeah.
So I could see them waiting. I still think that they shouldn't wait very long, but I could see them waiting. I don't know why in the hell Arizona State or Utah would wait. Do you?
I mean, honestly, it's just blatant stupidity is what I would call it. I mean, I don't know. What else are you looking for? You know, you can dream a scenario where these schools get the invite to the Big Ten, but I'm telling you, these schools, and you know, I've tried to convey this to people. You know, the Big Ten and the SEC at this point are not, you know, for instance, me personally, the best commissioner in college football right now is Greg Sankey. Okay, I've been saying that for years. Okay, right. He's not going to add random teams or teams that don't bring any more money or value to the conference. Same thing with the Big Ten. What is making them want to add more teams when each one of those teams are going to get almost $100 million? I think with the addition of UCLA and USC, it comes down to 90. But why would you add more teams when ESPN said, look, we're not going to give you more money. You're just going to cut more of the pie. So why would you add more teams? You're not going to. And right now, ESPN is going through cuts, through layoffs. No one's getting more money. So, and that's why I tried telling people too, ESPN has done a great job in terms of everything I've heard with the ACC in terms of bringing other people in, potentially more streamers, or ESPN saying, look, with more of these layoffs, we have more space for money, depending upon what the NBA gets, or the WWE, whatever they're going to do there in terms of different markets. But they have to understand, if you're in Utah or you're Arizona or Arizona State, if you get the call from the Big 12, you got to go. You got to go. Right. Because if you get left out in the dust now, it won't be until another 5 to 10 years till you can get back in. So, I just think it needs to be understood that what Colorado did today by basically, we'll find out tomorrow officially that they're going to go to the Big 12. That school can thank its athletic director and Deion Sanders. Okay. I've never seen a school that was 1-11 last year get this many eyeballs and this much notoriety. But because of their coach, they're able to do that, and they created value. So Colorado really saved itself by hiring Deion Sanders. In a perfect world, I think, really in reality, 3 years ago or 4 years ago, I was kind of shocked Florida State didn't hire Deion Sanders. But again, you have the elites or the academia of the world that just don't want to go differently outside the box. Colorado was able to do that this year and really convinced him to come aboard. I just think that in terms of the Pac-12, man, you are just really in a tight bind. I don't understand why a school wouldn't want to jump. And that's why I think, when you heard, Jim Williams talked about it this week, I got to get him on the show in a couple of weeks or whatever and get you on there, Jason. He talked about it too. The ACC is going to come from one of those schools and tell ESPN, look, you either want to add these schools and potentially add more value to the conference because, one, the ACC has the most TVs and eyeballs because they're in large cities, okay, more than any other conference around the country. You either want to add those schools or you don't. But in terms of the Big 12 is a much better landing spot than being in the Pac-12 right now. So if you're Utah, Arizona State, make that jump. I don't know why that, if they're truly waiting for a Big 10 offer, that's just stupidity. I mean, make the jump. Make the jump.
Yeah. And again, look, you're looking at this thing right now. They are offering a full share of revenue to Colorado to make this move.
Yeah.
That was the concern. And what you continue to hear from these Pac-12 pundits was that, oh no, they're not even going to get the same amount of money. They don't have to pay them. Fox isn't going to pay anybody. We continue to hear that. Apparently, obviously, Yormark's a little smarter than that. Right. Let's see. Last Wednesday, 2 days before the Pac-12's media day, Phil DiStefano and Colorado AD Rick George met with Brett Yormark in Chicago to discuss the possibility of a return. Then in the past few weeks, school officials met with Colorado's largest donors, and the donors supported the Buffalo's move. This was the biggest hurdle. It was not about whatever this agreement that they have continued to tell everybody that they're going to have, that they don't. That's not what it was about. It's never been what it's about. Okay. Kliavkoff has continued to say, and this is something, this is just that, we've noticed that the deal gets better the longer we wait. That's the biggest bunch of bullshit I've heard ever. Yeah, right. Yeah. It hasn't gotten better. You waiting is what got you screwed. Because when Yormark jumped in front of you, and you notice he didn't mess around with the money too long. He took the deal because he knew that they didn't leave much on the table. He said it at the Super Bowl, that we did not leave money on the table. We knew that you were about to have WWE and UFC and the NBA all renegotiate their deals. And this is all, whether or not you believe that one thing has to do with the other, it's all TV time.
Yep. It's all TV time. It's all TV time. And guess what? Now the ESPN basically, with now Colorado leaving, especially one more school leaves, I can tell you this, that's hundreds of millions of dollars that are now open for the market. And it's either going to go to the Big 12, the ACC. I highly doubt, unless they add the Power 5 schools to the SEC or the Big 10, they get more money. I mean, right. I'm just absolutely shocked that I just can't see in a world where these schools are waiting. I just don't understand it. If you're already, before the TV deal's even announced, you're making cuts and you're going to sit back and wait and see if your school survives or not. I mean, forget about athletically, just fiscally. If I'm in a company, for instance, let's just talk about business wise. If I'm the CFO of a company or chief executive officer, and my strategic plan is literally to sit back and just sit there and wait. Well, guys, we're going to sit on our hands for a little while, and we're going to figure out here what the offer is going to look like down the road. You have no leverage.
It's like they're all following each other's dummy moves around. It's, the blind leading the blind.
And that's, guess what? Scared money don't make money. I got news for you. If you don't make a move and understand the pros and the cons, you're not doing the right thing for your institution. You're losing money because of dumb, stupid decisions. You need to make sure.
And pride, all this bullshit about freaking,
pride don't pay the bills.
It's just so stupid. It's just that they would actually waste time and talk about academic funding having anything whatsoever to do with the conference alignment of your athletic. Has jack shit to do with it, but they've continued to dig themselves deeper and deeper and deeper into this hole, thinking that it was going to help them when all it's really done is just burying them.
Yeah.
Right.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine going back to a school and saying, "Well, yeah, we used our academic money for athletic funds and to help pay for NIL, all this shit." Could you imagine that? That school would explode. That's not what it's there for.
Crazy.
Your job is to take that from a different level. Your academic money or research money is for the research and the academia of the school, for the university, the students, the life of living for the students. That's what you're there for. The athletic money is strictly media deals, fundraising through donors, through boosters, through athletic programs, everything. That's a completely different thing. That's why when I heard those Pac-12 guys start doing that, I turned it off, because you immediately lose all your credibility because you have no idea what you're talking about. You're trying to claim something that's totally not true. And one, universities would never fiscally, if you're a chief executive officer of any business, you would never allocate funds from something that you're not getting a return on and putting it somewhere else where there's no gain for it. I'm sorry. It's just not how things work.
No, and it's not. And, and I've known some people in the Pac-12 and actually at a Pac-12 school that's been in this discussion that, they're on the board of governors. And one thing that they said was, listen, we are not going to sit here and freaking be at the, how did they put it again? I want to make sure I say this exactly right. We are not going to sit here and freaking die on the vine while Stanford, Cal, Oregon, and Washington get to choose what the hell's going to happen, and they're going to walk away anytime anyway. We are going to do what's best for our school and our situation. And no, absolutely, academics money has nothing to do with the other. It was just a giant smokescreen that, again, it dug them into this hole, and then they dug their heels in even further. And so it was just like, go ahead and start dumping the cement. We're just going to sit here and act like it's not happening. Right.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, Jason, honestly, and to really put it into perspective right now, honestly, I'm going to make a very bold claim right now. I just got a text message from a source. I'm just going to put this out there. This is totally my prediction based off of just a little something I got. I would not be shocked. Within the next 3 months, we hear the ACC and the Pac-12 do some type of a merger. I'm just putting that out there. I would not be shocked.
Wow.
I would not.
Yeah, it really wouldn't shock me either, I guess, but it's not something that, but okay. And so where does that really help? I guess here's the thing. I know right now that USC and UCLA are acting like they don't want any other Pac schools to go to the Big Ten. They want to make sure that they're the only ones, right? I don't know why that is, but that's what they act like they want. To me, at some point, you're going to want these travel partners, because it's not about football. They're only going to play X amount of games. They're not going to change that amount, right?
Yeah.
But it's about the Olympic sports and about basketball and everything else, that they are going to be the travel costs for being on the East Coast all damn year is astronomical. Astronomical. Do you really save yourself any money? I don't think that you do. And I'm not telling, and look, if that keeps these guys from going into a situation, then that's great. I'm good with that, right? I hope that that's the case. What I would tell you is I don't believe that is the case. Now, I still think that some of this may slow down at some point, but I think that you would end up having to. I feel like USC and UCLA is going to need them at some point. They're gonna, in the Big Ten. And I'm not positive that anybody in either of those conferences believes that they're going to save each other. Do you believe that the ACC saves the Pac-12 and vice versa?
Here's my only thing of why I say that. There must be some type, and I will say this. One thing I did like about what Yormark was talking about recently was time zones. Okay, you're getting a lot of eyeballs in certain places.
Oh yeah.
If you had for instance, if they change it to the Atlantic Pacific Coast Conference, if you did something like that, you're talking about different eyeballs from different parts of the country. Yeah. I'm telling you, if you look at it, I think that, because here's the thing, the more you think about it, like you said, I think personally, in terms of money, UCLA and USC. Now, UCLA is in a different world than what USC is in. USC is cash flush. They're not going to have any issues with traveling. Now, they're going to be tired. I'll tell you what, ask West Virginia about their travel schedule between the Big 12 conference. I think that has a little bit to do with why they struggled so much in the Big 12. But UCLA, they're $110 million in debt. If the Big 10 didn't allow them to join, I'm not sure that the UCLA would have all these Olympic sports. I don't think it would be there. Now, when it comes to the saving of Oregon, Washington, if it's got to be pushing Stanford, Cal, these other schools that maybe just don't want to go into another conference, they just want to stay saving face. You got to realize too, do these presidents kind of come to the table and say, look, we have a commissioner right now that's not doing his job. What's the conversation right now? I want to know, what's the conversation being like with Commissioner Jim Phillips of the ACC, having that conversation out there and says, hey, if we did a merger, or if we brought them on with the ACC and we were the real distributors of the ACC, where you add in the Pac-12 schools, what you could basically say is look, you intertwine those two conferences. Let's say you had the Pac-8, for instance. You have 8 schools from the Pac-12 or the Pac-8. You involve all of them, and for instance, into scheduling, and then you add in maybe, let's say, 1 or 2 per year from the ACC, where you create that travel schedule back and forth. You can do that fiscally, because you only have 2 games across the country. Now, if you only added, let's say, you added Oregon or Washington from across the country, I feel like you'd need to add 2 more schools. Now, it also depends on how much money is ESPN willing to fork up. What are they going to do in terms of, because guess what? I don't care what anybody says. The grant of rights will be there until 2036 or 2 or 3 years before they renegotiate. My biggest thing is I want to see in terms of what's the leverage. If the Pac-12 comes to the table and says, hey, we need help, what does ESPN say? Do they say no? Hey, we're only adding these many schools? But I'm just telling you, I wouldn't be shocked with the financials of it all to make it somewhat affordable for some of these Pac-12 teams. And you add in the time zones like Utah, Oregon, Washington. You add in these schools, Cal, Stanford, the AAU statuses, because these academia love that kind of stuff, man. Just for some reason, the AAU status, man, you got to have it or you don't. Whatever.
Sure.
I don't understand it at all, but it is what it is. But I just think that if they try to make it work at this point, I wouldn't be shocked if some of those Pac-12 presidents are trying to find something, man, because it's a tough spot, man. None of them, besides Oregon and Washington, are potential targets for the Big Ten, and that's it. The SEC, they're not adding anybody from the Pac-12. So call it what it is right now. So if you're a Pac-12 school, your options are praying for a Big Ten offer, which is only going to be Oregon or Washington, possibly, which I don't even see that happening. They were vetted. There's a reason why. There's no more money there. So your option is merger, have the ACC get involved, or if you're able to, jump to the Big 12. That's your only 2 options. Your realistic options are, number 1, jumping to the Big 12 if the offer's there, or you're asking for God's saving grace for the ACC to come aboard and say, look, let's go to ESPN and talk about a merger.
Here's what I'm going to tell you about the ACC thing from the standpoint of, okay, they've been talking about a lot of that because of basketball for Arizona, right? That basketball, even Arizona State, that they're going to, that would be huge for the Big 12 because the Big 12 wants to sell that out separately. Now, don't get me wrong. The ACC has been the big dog in basketball for a long time, and I understand that. What I would tell you is this. Do you keep, let's say Arizona now goes into the ACC, and because they're trying to retake their spot as, the basketball conference. I don't think that's a great move for Arizona. I don't think that's a great move for Arizona. I think it's a bad move for Arizona because now you're making that long trip all the time out there and going up and down Tobacco Road for days at a time. That's not good for your blue blood program. You want to stay regional as much as you can, and you can get that competition right there in the Big 12 with Houston and Baylor and obviously Kansas and Texas Tech. You know, we're talking about hardcore big time. Hey, listen, K-State is real. They're real. No two ways around it. You know, this is a real league. If you're Arizona, so that's where I would pump the brakes on that part of it, just to the view of the fact that Arizona is under no, I mean, they are under no illusion that they're going to become a freaking football powerhouse all of a sudden.
Yeah.
They know where their bread gets buttered, right?
Yeah.
You got to kind of hang around there. Now, and again, I do feel like what you probably want to do if you're in Arizona and Arizona State should want to stay together just because of their rivalry alone. You know, they're an hour away or 100 miles away from each other. Silly talk to even think otherwise, right? Utah, as we said, they're never going to go to the Big Ten ever, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, Stanford and Cal may go to the Big Ten, but that'll be the only place they go. They're not going to the ACC. They're not. They won't.
I would be shocked if Stanford or Cal go to the Big Ten. There's no value in football or basketball. I mean, it's just that would actually drag the conference down. I think that would just be a dead body. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like at this point. That's why I kind of tell people about Northwestern. Yeah, pretty much Northwestern, Rutgers, Nebraska. You have Maryland. I mean, Michigan State. How many? What now? They were 3-9 last year. You know, you have Minnesota. They were below average again. I think Wisconsin gets better because Luke Fickell's there. I think he's going to do a really good job there. But I mean, for crying out loud, I mean, Iowa, they score 7 points a game and they went 7-5. I mean, you know what I mean? Like after a while, you have to look at it and say, okay, hey, if you had these teams, you're kind of just taking a shit on your own conference because they had no value. You know, it was bad enough. It was bad enough when Notre Dame lost to Cal and lost to Marshall. You know what I mean? Like those type of schools, like you know, Cal was in there, Stanford was in there. You can't I don't see the only two schools I could potentially see because they actually, in my personal opinion, they add value is because of Washington and Oregon. That's it. The rest of them, your options are like you said. I think your first option is exactly what you were saying, the Big 12 conference. That's your first option. But if your mark says, hey, you sat on your thumb, you gave us the middle finger, go take the high road, my man. Go find your own way. And their second option and their only option is the ACC.
And I'm going to tell you something. I believe that is a real conversation inside these Big 12 offices. It is because of the fact that they have pissed off so many Big 12 members with this truck stop flyover conference 12 and on shit that has been going and all over this to try to. And you're Utah. You've been there 10 minutes. Shut up. You are not any more Pac-12 than any of the teams in the Big 12. You're not.
Yeah.
And I think Mountain West. That's who you've been.
You know, and I think that the biggest thing is like, you know, they've done a hell of a job in that conference. I think that they've played really well in basketball and football, but they're not
in basketball. They've been trash. They went as soon as Majerus left, they went to shit. And that's the whole point. Yeah.
So you look at them and you say, hey, you've done well in football. Okay, you've hit the shitter with basketball, but at this point too, even with football, you've done well, but you're not a blue blood. You're not a blue blood.
And so you don't fit the Big Ten.
Yeah, culturally, travel. I mean, you're just man. And I understand we're talking about travel.
They just don't want to play BYU. They don't. They want to dig their heels in. It doesn't have shit to do with anything else because we know that the AAU side of it. That shit ain't changing. In fact, the fact that they had AAU, if you look at Kansas, they don't do a lot of AAU research with anybody else in the Big 12 because most Big 12 schools can give a shit about the AAU. Okay. That's not what they're in for. Oklahoma could be an AAU school. They have a great medical program. They don't care. Yeah. Texas is the only one that's had one up until this point. Iowa State just said that they didn't even care about it. They don't want it. They were looking to do it. None of them care. None of them care. Kansas has already been doing research with the Big Ten for years because they're in the Midwest. Yeah. It makes geographical sense to do it. It didn't change anything. It didn't change anything.
I will say this too. You know, when you look in terms of the Big Ten, I've said, again, Oregon and Washington, but if there's anybody from the Pac-12, from the Big 12, the only Big 12 team that would ever be interested in the Big Ten, or the Big Ten being interested in, would be Kansas, because they're right there in the Midwest and their basketball program.
It makes sense. Yeah, they don't rely on Texas for anything they do, right? Yeah. They don't. They pull, and they're a national brand when it comes to basketball, and that's what they're always going to be. Now they have a great coach right now, a great football coach, and they've got the preseason player of the year in Jalen Daniels. In the end, are they going to be able to keep him? Probably, or keep, and I'm not talking about Jalen. I mean, he can't stay forever. Are they going to be able to keep Lance Leipold? I tend to doubt it, because it's been 50 years since they upgraded the stadium, and they're having some issues with the way they're funding it to try to do some upgrades now. You're going to have to pay this guy, and you're going to have to upgrade the facilities. Otherwise, Lance Leipold is on his way out the door sooner than later, right? Yeah. Do they really care? I don't know, because basketball is king out there in the freaking plains. It's just how it is. Right? It's where James Naismith came up with the freaking game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It is what it is. Now, I agree with you though. And they would fit into the Big Ten, because it's actually a shorter trip for them to go to Chicago than it is for them to go to Dallas.
Yeah. And this is a whole nother conversation. This is a whole nother conversation, but this is one thing that I've looked at. Again, I've not heard anything about that, but I have seen conversations about it, which in the end does make sense to me. And I want to get your thoughts on this. When do you think some of these conferences, like for instance, the Big Ten and the SEC, like for instance, the Big Ten, when do you think they start knocking out teams like Indiana, Rutgers, Northwestern? When do you start saying, hey, when do you start kicking them
when
out?
you stop being profitable to the league, and that you're really being a freaking hindrance because they're paying you the same amount? I mean, shit, are they even paying Rutgers a full slate yet? Yeah. Because I don't know that they are. I mean,
the only two schools not getting it are Maryland and
Rutgers, right?
Is it Rutgers?
I think it is. I mean, what value can they possibly bring?
So how about this? You just
said it earlier that it's not about markets anymore. Yeah. They acted like it was, and then you realize that it didn't really happen, right?
No one was watching Rutgers football. So why they added them to begin with? That was so stupid. Back when markets were a thing, I was just so shocked to see that. Like when you look at that, and their explanation for adding Rutgers was markets. No one, who in God's name is watching Rutgers football? When I was in the
military, I was 10 miles away from Rutgers. I knew damn well better than that when they were at. Nobody watched it there. Nobody watched it there on local television. Why the shit would they watch it nationally or in New York? Why? It just doesn't make sense. Anyway, guys, appreciate everybody coming in here. JJ, I appreciate you showing up in here as well. I guess I do need to get in there and help out Bomb3r in there on his show. You're welcome to jump over too. I can send you that link. If not, we'll catch you on the next one. Guys, thanks so much everybody for coming into the show. I know we kind of did this last minute. We do have shows coming up later in the week. We will be talking more recruiting. As much as I love it, we'll be talking more recruiting. We will have again on Saturday. We got Saturday 2 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to have Nigel Smith II, defensive tackle for the 24K recruiting cycle. Excited. He is my favorite recruit in the country. We've talked about that before. Can't wait to have that conversation with him as well. And guys, make sure you get over to Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. He hadn't been putting out a ton of stuff lately because of it's just like kind of what was going on with me. Life starts happening around you. There's some things that got to get done. We're going to be over there helping him as the season gets ready to start as well. I hope everybody's getting ready. Get over there and subscribe to his channel so that whenever we start getting out some of these deep dives into the ACC, and he's going to actually help me out with some of these Big 12 deep dives, that you can make sure that you can see it as well. But JJ, thanks so much for coming. Tell them again how to find you on Twitter as well, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at JJ_Kitchen4. Kitchen40. Again, thanks again for the comments, guys. They're always great. JJ Kitchen40 on Twitter. And, of course, on YouTube, Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. It's going to be good to get back up and running here, especially after a move and life in general. It's going to be good to get back up and running. And, again, guys, like Jason's content, everything. Again, I always love coming on here because it's a great show. It's all factual, and I love the opinions that are on here as well. He's the best of the best. That's why I love coming on here. And I miss our guy, Coach, tonight. Great man, Notre Dame man. Again, guys, thank you guys for just the comments, the questions, the likes, everything. You guys are so involved. It's what makes the show great, man. Just continue to do what you guys are doing and support Jason, because this channel is the best. So thank you guys.
Thanks a lot, JJ. I appreciate again you every time. I love to bring you on because he always talks me up. It's always good times when JJ's here. Hey, we will definitely get together with you here in the next few days. Talk about we need to work on your channel a little bit as well. I can't wait to help you out on some of that. And we got some good ideas coming up. I want you on my channel, man. I got to have you around. So we appreciate it. And JJ, we'll talk to you soon.
Amen, brother. Hail to Pitt.
All right. Have a good one. All right, guys. So, yeah, JJ's a cool man. One of my favorites out there. He does a great job with this stuff. If you're not already a subscriber to his channel, you should be. He gets into some deep dive stuff. He's not just one of those guys. Hey, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate that super chat. Oh, yeah, there it is. There it is. There it is. OU's going to make a clean sweep. Boomer Sooner. You're talking about recruits. Love it, Lemon. Appreciate that, buddy. Appreciate that a lot. Yes. Hey, look, I really feel like everything's going to be fine. And, yeah, the whole deal with, he's a Pitt guy. Pitt, look. They won the ACC a couple of years ago. I mean, he went to school there. He's a college athlete as well. Big fan of his. But the thing about him is that he looks at it all pragmatically. He's definitely a Pitt fan. Kind of like me, though. He wants to cover national stuff. I think he's as talented as they get. So make sure you guys get over there. Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Give him a sub as well. Also the same with the Holy Rivals and Big 12 Mafia shows. Make sure you jump over there and check them out as well. I'm going to get over there to the Big 12 Mafia show now, and we will see you guys here on, we're looking at Friday. We'll have another one, and then Saturday as well. So thanks a lot, everybody, for coming in. We will see you on the next one.